Well, I want to say good morning to you this morning. Welcome to Stones Hill Community Church. It is a delight to welcome you here as it is every week. And some of you, I understand, may have come in for the first time this morning, and we welcome you here. I'm Pastor Joey, and it's my privilege to talk to you each week out of the Bible. And so thank you for coming, being a part of it. And then those of you who are here each week on a regular basis, thank you for coming and being a part of it. And we get to pick up the discussion week after week after week and look into the Word and see what God has to say to us. And I guess if you were to ask me, what is the unique thing that Stones Hill Community Church does in our community? Maybe even in comparison to other churches. Not that we compare to other churches, but as we think about our identity, who we are as a church. And I think one of the things that we really champion here is that we have a very high view of the Bible, and that is that we believe the Bible and that we proclaim the Bible and we teach the Bible, and that's one of the unique trademarks of our church and our commitment to that. Another thing I would tell you is a very high Christology, and we hold Jesus way up here. He is the God-man, okay? And He is unlike no other. He is the Savior and the rescuer of the world. And I would be remiss in my obligation if I didn't share with you that you need Jesus. We all need Jesus. What He has done for the world is phenomenal. It's outstanding. It's remarkable. It's life-changing, cosmic shifting. It is incredible what He's done for the world. But there is a personal appropriation of that. And what do I mean? That means we come to places in our life where we say yes personally to God's rescue plan. And we follow Him and love Him, okay? And endeavor to live our lives in gratitude to Him. So if you need Jesus this morning, you've come to the right place. We hold Him in high regard, the Savior of the world. If you need truth this morning, we hold the Word in high regard. And it will enlighten your path. It'll give you insights in how to live your life, okay? And so we're going to talk out of the Bible, and we're going to talk out each week out of the Bible here at Stones Hill Community Church. We're committed to that. And after I talk to you a little bit today, out of a strange place, Genesis chapter 5, which is a chronology, not a chronology, it's a genealogy, but it is chronologically arranged. You're going to get some insights from that. Of course, I talked to you a little bit about it last week, and we're going to pick up from the same passage this week. And I think what I'll do today is just kind of bring my ending all the way to the beginning, and then I'll go back and develop it as we go. Sometimes I'll do things in different order, but this morning I feel maybe that we should approach it this way. And one of the things you're going to see in the Genesis 5 passage, all right, is you're going to see the repetition of certain phrases. Last week we looked at the phrase, and he died, right? We see this. Just go ahead and pull up Genesis 5 for me, okay? And he died, and he died. And we see this over and over again, Genesis 5. Okay? And not only that, and he died, and he died, and he died, but we see also that he lived. And I kind of juxtapose those two ideas, okay? They died. It's like one big gravestone after another. And then he lived. And sometimes the best questions to ask, not, am I ready to die, but am I ready to live? And we talked to you about that last week. Okay, if you just pull up Genesis chapter 5 for me on the screen, it should be, the PowerPoint slide should be there. There we go. Okay, and what you're going to see also, in addition to this genealogical chapter of Genesis 5, you're going to see another phrase often repeated. And so this is really where we're going to go today. He had a son, sons and daughters. Go to the next slide. I've already read this last week, so I'm trusting it to your memory. If you weren't here last week, you'd like to read through it again, feel free to do that. It's in your YouVersion app as well. And we might touch base with some of this again. But he became a father, the father of sons and daughters. He became the father of sons and daughters. Go to the next slide. Okay. Became the father of sons and daughters, and then he died. He became the father of sons and daughters, and then he died. Next slide. He became the father of sons and daughters, became the father of sons and daughters. Next slide. Became the father of sons and daughters, had a son. Next slide. Sons and daughters, became the father of. Right? What's the story behind the story? Well, the story behind the story is We're all looking for a way to preserve a legacy. We're looking for a way to invest our lives in something that outlives us, or someone that outlives us. Okay, people are going to have a lot of different ways they're going to go about trying to do that and accomplish that in life. There is no greater way than to invest in the people God has entrusted to your care, those sons and those daughters. Okay? It's one of the best ways. Sons and daughters. Sons and daughters. Sons of Adam, daughters of Eve. Okay? I've talked to a lot of different school personnel. There's teachers, and there's administrators, and there's principals, and there's those who work with students on a daily basis. Do you know what they all tell me without fail? 100%. Do you know what they all tell me? The one thing students need more than anything else are parents and a family who engage them, who observe them, who listen to them, who track them, who mentor them, who disciple them, who are creating a life experience for them, and they're attentively watching their journey and engaged in their journey and interacting with their thoughts and their ideas. Everybody that works in education will tell me that, without fail. Somehow, if that could happen. Okay? Why is that important, sons and daughters? Okay? This is how God has called us to make a difference, to make an impact. And I've even gone through and just given you some practical things that you can do. All right? You think about that genealogical list. There's all kinds of accomplishments those guys had in their life. But what are their primary accomplishments? It's the years they lived. It's the sons they raised. And it's the daughters they raised that made a difference. Okay? And the fact is that if we're ever going to share the story behind the story, and what is the story behind the story? Well, there's a reason why this family is being tracked in the Old Testament, Genesis 5 and going forward. There's a reason, because God is telling a story. He's got a Redeemer on the way. He's got a rescue coming. It was prophesied about in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. There's going to be one coming. You're going to bruise his heel, and he's going to stomp your head. And that's the beginning of a promise that God said, I'm going to rescue them. I'm going to rescue these sons of Adam and daughters of Eve. I'm not going to abandon them. I'm committed to this world, to saving it. I'm committed. And this is the tracking of a family. I'm going to send one, made of a woman, born of a woman. I'm going to send one, the God-man, who's going to come. And he's going to not just defeat sin, he's going to destroy it and transition us to a brand new creation. Well, all of that is found in the genealogy of Genesis 5. Okay? The genealogy of Genesis 5. It's all found right there. And this is, people come and they'll talk to me about different questions and things when I preach a message or I'm in a passage of the Bible. They'll talk to me and ask questions and things. And some of the questions I hear, something, at least it hints at this, is why do we even have an Old Testament? Okay? Why do we have it? The primary reason, I'll give you the short answer. The primary reason we've got the Old Testament, when you look at history, biblical history, and you see what happened in the nation of Israel, all right? Assyrian captivity of 722 BC. I'm going to geek out on you for a second. Let me geek. All right? 722 BC. Assyrian just about destroyed them. 150 some odd years later, the 586 BC of the Babylonian captivity, they just about destroyed them. You have, during the period of Esther, the nation was threatened. And after they were able to return home, those who were taken into captivity and were not destroyed, they were taken into captivity 586 BC. Those who returned home, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, this block of books in the Old Testament. What are they obsessed with more than anything else? Genealogy. Who's who? Who is really our nation? And how are we going to survive if another nation decides they're going to put their foot on us and destroy us? How are we going to survive that? How are we going to survive? How are we going to exist? Okay? How can we overcome when some rogue powerhouse world superpower decides to stamp out a little nation called Israel? How are you going to survive that? They had a solution. We're going to write. We're going to assemble all of our sacred books in one book. And today we know as the Old Testament. And that way we will, if we can't survive with sword and spear and shield, we'll survive literally. And that's why you have a Bible. That's why you have an Old Testament. Okay? They were looking to try to survive it. All right? And so one of the big priorities they had was to determine who's a part of this thing. And that's why they give attention to the genealogical record. But when we look at Genesis chapter 5, like I said, we see in that genealogy that whole story, God's rescue story. We see it in Adam, where man was created, and it's a beautiful garden, and God had blessed us in so many ways, and so we have this creation, this new life, and we see it plummet, and we see things cursed, and then we see a guy like Methuselah in the middle of that whole genealogical list, a guy like Methuselah who lives, and Enoch who walks with God and is translated, and then we come on down to Noah in that list in Genesis chapter 5. Noah, who brings us through the flood, and who positions us for a new creation when God just holds the world accountable for all that she sabotaged His creation, and He holds the world accountable. Okay? Here's what's crazy, y'all. Here's what's crazy. I don't know who's parenting who. Out of thousands, even millions of people, only 8 people make it on the ark. Where's the moms and dads? Where's the story behind the story? Who's telling it? How are you telling it? How do only 8 people? Only 8. How does that happen? That's nuts. And it sure did. 8 people make it on the ark. You see, somebody lost the story somewhere. Somebody didn't communicate the story behind the story of the genealogical list. And see, that's what you men and you women and dads, okay, that's what we're being called to. We can't allow the story behind the story to drop out of the picture. To cease to be a dynamic, a vision that drives our lives, that defines who we are and where we're headed and what our role is in the world. And that's why I think our educators have it right. They have it right because we see it. It's moms and dads who drop the story. And somehow it ceases to shape us. Now listen, when we look at the book of Genesis, it covers about 2,500 years of history. And Genesis 4 and 5 cover about 1,500 of those 2,500 years of history. And as you study the Bible, you begin to understand why the genealogies are critical, as I've shared, because ultimately they lead us directly to the Messiah, the Lord Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. One of the things I'm going to mention right here is if we note the years listed for the lives of each of these patriarchs, and we can do that, what's really interesting in comparison to other genealogical records in the Bible is that they do not list the years. Genesis 11, 1 Chronicles 6, Ezra 7, Matthew 1, Luke 3. They don't list the years as they list the years here in Genesis 5. And so in some of those genealogical lists, they give names only and they skip over some of the generations. By contrast, Genesis 5 does list years, and I think that we can take it as primarily, this is a record, this is an accurate record with very little or if any skipping at all of generations. Okay? And so we learn, and if you would just go to slide number 9 for me. Slide number 9. We learn that Adam overlapped Methuselah by 200 years. Okay? Isn't this crazy? So you've got Adam right here, and he lives 930 years. You got Methuselah down here, he lives 969 years. They overlap. You see that? Okay? You got Noah here. All right? And Methuselah dies right before the flood, or right at the year of the flood. And Adam dies 930 years in. And so Adam and Noah miss each other by, you can do the math, by a few years there. Right? And so what's crazy is that people who were alive at the time of the flood, thousands of people, had access to Adam. Long lifespan. You see that? Here's the guy who could tell you, I was in the garden. Me and Eve. Doing our thing. Taking care of the garden. The serpent he's telling the story. This is what Eden was like. This is what the garden was like. This is life. This is what the world was like. This is what happened. He could tell them the whole story. He could tell them personally. He could tell them the whole story from personal experience. All the way up to one generation, from within one generation of the flood. Do you see that? Are you with me? Okay? What's crazy is that even though they had Adam telling the story, only 8 people listened and made it on the ark. 8 people. Okay? That's crazy. And so when you look at this, you've got Adam, and then you've got Methuselah. So Methuselah and Adam could have had, we don't see it in the Bible, but more than likely had conversation, right? They're in the story. They got the story behind the story. They're in conversation. Methuselah, 969 years. He knew Adam personally. Okay? And there's Lamech, and Lamech gives birth to Noah. Noah was born. Noah and Methuselah overlap. All right? After the flood, you've got Shem. You got Abraham down here. Abraham and Shem overlap. So you've got Abraham, who could have talked to Shem, who came through the flood, was on the ark, who heard from and who learned from Noah, who learned from Methuselah, who learned from Adam. You've got basically 3 or 4 generations that give us 2,500 years of biblical history. This is why we preach the Bible. This is why. Okay? It's an accurate account of what happened. And it's only a few generations removed that we cover. The long lifespans allow you to cover that many years of history. That's why we hold in high regard. That's why we trust it as accurate, as reliable, as something that should be life-changing, and something that is life-changing in all of our lives. So it's interesting to me as I look at that, and as I think about that, and I look at how history has been transferred, the story behind the story has been transferred. It's been given generation after generation after generation, the father of, and the sons and daughters, and the father of, and the sons and daughters. So the question I got this morning is, how can we, as moms and dads and families, how can we set up and live and lead in our families in such a way that we don't lose the story behind the story that's been coming to us all these years? How do we keep it? How can we make an impact? Well, I thought about that. I thought about what all the administrators share with us, and all the teachers and all the educators share with us, that somehow can we invest, can we connect it at the family level? Can we make a difference there? You look on your YouVersion slide, or your YouVersion notes, okay? There's a few things there that I've listed. some practical things that we can do to ensure that the story behind the story, not just the story behind the story, but to ensure that we do a great job of loving our families. Just this week, we officially became empty nesters. And that's kind of interesting, because when you get to that point, and Levi didn't make it to San Antonio, where he'll be for a while, and then he's headed to Seattle, Washington for his duty station. Will, as I speak, I think is en route to Iraq, Q West base in Iraq. John Wygant might know where that's at. Q West in Iraq. That's where he's going to be for a while. Okay. Megan, of course, she's been out. You know all about Megan. I told you about Megan. All right. So here's the deal: when you go through that, and some of you put college freshmen, you dropped them off. Maybe for your first kid that's been dropped off, so you've had an eye-awakening thing. But when you do that, you go back and you start backtracking. You start thinking, did I do this thing right? Did I approach this right? Are there questions that I didn't address that I should have? Right? You start evaluating, and you start really get introspective. And what's really crazy is it just feels like he's going to work. I mean, he's been working all summer, 2 or 3 different jobs, so he just feels like he's going to work. But the problem is he didn't come back. He didn't come back that evening. Somebody said they'll be back. Look, don't worry, they'll be back, and they will. But it's a little different this time. It's a little different. They're not coming back the same way. It gets different. I know you talk on the phone and you do the texting and all of this, but it's different. When they leave home, it's different. Your role shifts. You're not. I'm struggling to figure out what I'm supposed to be as an adult to them as they are adults now. You kind of find that low point of entry so as not to throw your weight around, but at the same time you respect who they are, but at the same time you want to say and share some things to kind of keep them on track. And so what I'm saying is that that's huge. That's a huge thing, and you think about that, and you're concerned about that, and I think about just our responsibility of leading our family, and just a little bit about, okay, what did I do? What did I attempt to do to help those guys get the story behind the story? Right? And I hope that if they don't catch anything else, that they caught that they've been made by God, that they're called to honor God, and that they want to live for the glory of God. Right? They want to reflect Him. And they want to reflect and polish the image of God in them, not tarnish it. That's the hope. And so, how can we translate all that practically, though? Just looking at life. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people are going to verify this. Okay? One of the things, your children deserve your time and attention when you're home. And the very best people tell you, your child psychologist, you focus on the families, your family life todays, all these people is going to tell you, leave work at work. What do they mean? That means that when you're home, put the phone on silent, just stop the emailing and the calling, have an isolated time when you're putting your kids first. That's huge. Secondly, share a family mealtime daily if possible. And that's been huge. I mean, I've never seen, at least our teenagers love to eat, and they still do. And I think that's one of the things that we'll miss the most is the family meal times. And of course, like I said before, Donna's a great cook, and a home-cooked meal really means a lot. And I can still see Levi when he's just a little boy. He tasted her meatloaf, I think it was, and his eyes just rolled back in his head. And he just put his head up, and he was just doing like that right there, giving it that right there. It's like I just looked at Donette, she looked at me. He's like, oh yeah, that's his love language. You got to pray for him now. All you Colts fans, okay? All the Colts fans, okay? You're going to make it. We need to have prayer time at the end of the church service. Yeah, he's a Colts fan, so that's going to be an existential angst for him. But Levi will be all right. But yeah, share a family mealtime if possible. Leave work at work. Number 3, prepare as much as you can the night before. I found that always helped. Of course, Donette did the bulk of this. Clothes are laid out, lunches are ready, paperwork signed, envelopes are ready, crock pot's on, the meat's in the cooking overnight. And it won't hurt them if kids have to problem solve a little bit. You don't have to bail them out. They don't make a decision, and they're procrastinating, and then all of a sudden it's on them. Let them deal with it. That's all part of life. Consequences, you learn to deal with that. Okay? So prepare as much as you can the night before. Holding a weekly family meeting, resolving conflicts, checking in on what's coming up on everybody's calendar, casting a vision for what you'd like to see happening in your family, in their life, sharing compliments of what good things you saw them doing in the last week, praying for the group out loud. It's huge. Another thing is appropriate hugs and kisses. Everybody will tell you children need the feeling of love and warmth. And it has an impact in shaping their personality as well. Lots of hugs and lots of kisses. They need that. Reading to them from an early age is huge. Expands their thinking and gives them words to work with. Night talks as bedtime takes place is a great connection point. Having a routine, making sure promotes restful sleep. Looking into their eyes, smiling often. Wrapping it up in prayer with your little one makes a difference. Little infants will study the faces of a mother, and she or he is searching for signs of acceptance. They've done studies on that. So important to connect at a very deep and personal level. Living out the values that you want them to embrace and live out in their lives. Consistent modeling marks a family for life. And watch it very closely to live out what you hope that they would aspire to be and to do. Everybody has a job to do in a family that's working smoothly, and everybody has that assignment, and they're expected to do that assignment. It's part of living in a family. When disobedience of a clear and reasonable parental request takes place, drop the flag. Step off the penalty every time, no matter which kid commits the infraction. Huge. Create some great memories by going to new places together. And finally, I would just say instilling a firm identity of their worth and value to God. You are so much more than what you just did there. Come on, let's up the game. You're so much more. That right there goes a long way to changing someone's perspective and their outlook. Dr. Baker will tell you. Adam Tomlinson will tell you. Mike Weimer will tell you. Love your kids. Invest in them. Attentively track them. Talk to them. Interact with them. Pray for them. Listen to them. Give them a voice. Not just that you're doing something, but this is why we want to approach it that way or this way. Though I'll tell you, the greatest gifts you can give a family. All the educators will verify it. And you can look even biblical history, and you can see that the difference makers. You know, it's amazing. God can sometimes reach into the worst of circumstances, and there's an anomaly. There's somebody that bucks the trend or breaks the rule, and they just are something they should never be based on the circumstances they come from, but by the grace of God they are. Praise God for that. We see some of that in the stories of the Bible. But in so many cases, it's people like Enoch, who raised a Methuselah, whose name means when he dies, God will send. When he dies, God will send. That's what his name means. Imagine that. Imagine that your son, Methuselah, your son, that when he dies, there's going to be a major global flood. Okay? Imagine that. Every time he'd get sick, you'd be like, whoa. Is this it? He lived close to God. Okay? He lived close to God. because he always had to be ready. And if you do the math, the year Methuselah dies, the flood comes, just like God promised through the name. Okay? And so we think about these things. We think about the story behind the story. We think about all that God's up to in the world, in and through Jesus. That's an incredible story. All right? We think about some practical things that we can do to ensure that our families are carriers of the great story of the ages, that somehow we don't get sidetracked and bogged down. That's one of the last things I said to Levi. Will, it's like, guys, God's been gracious, giving you a good church family, giving you a mom and daddy that love you, invested in you, giving you some good coaches along the way. They made a difference in your life. You've had some good friends. You're from a good community. Don't get bogged down on something. Don't get bogged down on some addiction or problem or where it's going to start pulling energy from your life and misdirecting all the potential maybe God's written into you. Don't get bogged down. Stay light. Stay light. Stay free. Focus. Let God guide you and lead you. And I really feel that way. And when I look at these genealogies, I can do what a lot of other people do. I can skip them and wonder why they're there in the Bible. I can pick them apart for their accuracy or their lack of it, like a lot of scholars do that. But when you look at these genealogical lists, especially one in Genesis 5, these are long lists. These are long lists of names, and they're signs of hope. Hope that nobody's forgotten. Hope that average people living normal lives who aren't even known for being heroes, that they chose to live, they chose to marry, they chose to have children, they chose to earn a living, they chose to pass on the great story of the ages. And the hope is that we are all part of something bigger than ourselves. And if everything else gets obliterated, everything else that I touched, everything else that I built, everything else that I impacted or hope to invest in, if all of that goes away, could it be said of me that I love my family, my sons and my daughters? I fathered them, I invested in them, and I love them. There is no greater legacy. No greater. And the one statement that every Jewish family wanted to say, I was in the line that gave rise to the person who saved the world. And so genealogy lets us know the Bible is reliable. It's been passed down. Not as many generations as you think, because of the long life terms that they lived. They could talk to these eyewitnesses. Like I said, imagine being able to sit down with Adam and still choosing not to listen to Noah and get on the ark. Imagine that. But genealogy lets us know the Bible is reliable. It lets us know that that family is important. It lets us know that God uses unlikely people in our family tree. And it points to the one who will bring all families together someday. There's a limited amount of time that we each have on this earth. And so we must make our lives count. And the genealogies teach us to do this. You never know. You're on your bike, having a great session of exercise, enjoying a beautiful evening. Bam, it's all different now. It happens. It happens. And it's hard for us to process that. I think we've all been impacted. All of you have been impacted by personal loss in your lives. And I think of Liz Schlemmer, who writes, "My dad's heart stopped beating at 9:28 last night." She wrote this on Thursday morning at 10:43 a.m. He had such a strong heart and lung capacity that even with the collapsed heart, he went on breathing and beating nearly 5 hours after the doctors removed the ventilator. The runner. He died in a more natural way. I'll skip some of this. But she has a very powerful tribute. She says, so yes, you can add it all up, and this horror is totally senseless. We've been very open about the facts. I just like to think that people prefer the truth. And she shares some of that with us. They've been just devastated by this. After school, speaking of her father, he had visited my grandma to check in on her. He had come home. He was wearing a bright yellow helmet and bright bike clothes. He knew the road he was on well. He'd ridden it many times. He left a note at the dining room table saying to order pizza. He'd be home at 6. Never made it home. And my fear, she says, about this tragedy is that now whenever somebody mentions Chuck Schlimmer, someone else will automatically respond, oh, what a terrible tragedy. Yeah, it totally is. We're heartbroken. We're shocked. We can't believe he's gone. Or what we'll miss with him. With that heart in mind, he was supposed to live to be 95. But please, please don't think of this first when you think of my dad. She says, that's what I'm talking about. Okay? No greater legacy. When your kids rise up and call you blessed. You lived a good life. You made some good choices. I want that for every one of you. There is no greater legacy than that. Okay? So she says, I think of his amazing smile. I'll remember him as a great father. There it is. Sons and daughters, father of. Okay? A great father. An entirely devoted family member. An endlessly curious person for his endurance, his toughness, his sense of adventure. For never quitting and never letting us quit. For always saying not to whine, even though he did to us all the time. He's a goofball, a sweetheart, a 12-year-old in a 40-year-old's body with a 58-year-old birth certificate. The kind of guy who would put baby carrots in his teeth and say, look, I'm a walrus. He's got a surprising, delightful sense of humor, sometimes even a smart sense of humor. Teasing was maybe his favorite form of affection, but don't think he can't give a good hug. Everything I'm just reading to you. Okay, everything you've just heard. He's a dreamer, a romantic, an armchair intellectual in the nicest way. He read as relentlessly as he ran. He liked to ask younger people questions about what they knew or thought, genuinely to understand the world better himself. He loved my mom so fiercely. He'd shower her with kisses in the kitchen and tell her she was gorgeous, babe. They've been together happily since they were 20 and knew each other even longer. He loved being a coach, and he was good at it. We knew we shared him with runners and students. He was an inspiring teacher who I think generally tried to open up the possibilities of the world to kids who couldn't see them yet, including me. He told me he worked on kids 2 or 3 at a time, and I believe it. He was humble. He valued being calm and quiet. He was a spiritual person who admired natural beauty in a river, a mountain, a bird, a fish, a tree, even a good stick. He noticed things we didn't. He believed in a tension in the world that holds us together, and that ultimately we belong to the earth and not the other way around. I know I haven't covered everything. There will always be something we miss. In memoriam, Chuck Schlimmer. Now, my racing and his racing overlapped. Of course, it overlapped at the Huff 50K. He owned that race. And you go back and look at the records, the race results and things, and he consistently finished top. 1 year he's second, top 10 several years, top 11 or 12. I mean, just always right there. I remember him finishing a race, and I saw him say, he was just, coming in hard, and as soon as he got done, he says, I'm never going to do this again. It's like, you know what, I just quit listening to that. I was like, no, I know, and this. Next year, signed up, here he'd go again, right? It's just the way he did it, right? And, but then, like a couple minutes, he'd be in the tent, and it hardly looked like he ran. Like, how do you do that? It just looked like he'd been on a picnic. I'm drooping, big, eyes are dark, and I'm tired, and I'm chilling and shaking, and I just got to go home, Chuck. He says, yeah, just going home. I'll get your thing, whatever, just going home. I'll take care of it. Like, how does he function like that? He just had an ability to go in the place of pain. He could stay there for a while. Right? He wrote me a note. And he gave it to me when he gave me the award to me. He picked up for me. Okay? I sent an email back to him. I said, you know what? I said, thanks for getting the award. But even more for your note. I'll keep it forever. And he just was coaching me. I'm a young guy. Well, not a young guy. I'm young at running. I'm a rookie. I don't know what I'm doing. I tell people that all the time. I have no idea what I'm doing. But on those races and those miles, got to ask a few questions. He gave a little input, a little guidance. And just let it spill over on the rookie. I remember him saying, this pace is not good, Joey. I don't think I can do this pace. I said, Chuck, just don't worry about it. Because I was in deep snow. I had trekking poles. I could go a little better with those, right? I went around Chuck. Big mistake. I should have never gone around him. The thought occurred to me. I'm behind him, right? I didn't really know who he was at first. And then I got up. It's like, we had a little conversation. He recognized me. I recognized him. We had a conversation and things. It's like, then I got to thinking, why did I go around him? That was stupid. Here's the guy that wins. It's like top 10. It's like, why did I go around this? I wasn't thinking. I said, Chuck, don't worry about it. You'll pass me up here. He passed me up there. He did. Right there he went. Okay? This is the kind of guy he was, though. He invested in people. In me, others, he invested. He's a great guy. You're mourning today, aren't you? I know you are. It's been a tough week. Tough week. But, sons and daughters, father of. That's the message. There's a story behind the story. And that story breaks down if relational breakdown happens at the family level. It doesn't get past. The story drops. Okay? But when we love, when we invest, when we care, when there's affection, when there's conversations, sometimes long into the night, early in the morning, over a meal, it impacts us. And now we're ready. Mom, Dad, tell me about that Adam and Eve thing again. Now what happened? And who was Methuselah? 969 years? No way. Did he have arthritis? High blood pressure? Don't know. 969 years, long time. Okay. That's the only way. You can tell a great story behind the story. But if you're not hugging and loving and kissing and caring, who cares? Who cares? Right? And so, the story behind the story is not as hard as you think it is. We've been called to love, and to love in the moment, and to invest in the people that matter in your life. And this is our greatest calling. It's our greatest calling. And I challenge each of us to it today. Would you pray with me? Father, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for your love. Thank you for the beauty of who you are. And thank you for this genealogical record that tells us so much. And And I'm just still amazed that out of all those thousands, even millions of people, only 8 made it on the ark. Where in the world are the moms and dads? I do not know. I do not know. I scratch my head in total bewilderment. I don't know. And then I think, well, old Joey here can stand up and accuse. But then I think, well, what kind of a mom or dad have I been? And Jesus, I need your grace for sure. But man, I hope that when it was go time in my family, I had the right conversations. And that's more important than anything. And I know there's people here that's buried some people that they love, some parents and some siblings and some children. And I know they probably had the same introspective conversation that I've had. And I just pray, Heavenly Father, that you would guide us, that we might give ourselves to the right things. And then when it's all said and done, we loved well, we fathered well, we mothered well. And therefore we set our family up to be a carrier in the story behind the story. That Jesus is coming, that he came, that he lived, he's coming back, that there's a new community called the church and we can be a part of it. Praise God. We pray we all be ready when that moment comes. We'd all be ready. And so you guide us this day. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. You know, I'm reminded of what Jesus said in response to a question. What will be the sign of your coming at the end of the age? He said, as the days of Noah were, so also shall the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying, giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them away, so also will be the coming of the Son of Man. I ask you, did Jesus believe in the history of the Old Testament? Yes, he did. Okay? He was encouraging us to study closely the characteristics prior to this judgment, because this would be the same characteristics of the time prior to his other return, second return. Here's the deal. Even though Adam and so many eyewitnesses were available that had talked to Adam, only 8 made it on the ark. Men's hearts were set on evil. We'll talk about that next week or maybe the week after. But as was mentioned earlier today, there's a second Adam. And he's done his best to persuade us yet again that, hey, you know what? There's going to be a period of accountability on the way in human history. And he says, Jesus says, there's going to be another flood. Another period of judgment. And he says, I'm the ark. In so many ways, I'm the ark. Get on board. I'm your way through. I'm your deliverance. I'm your rescue. Get on board. Okay? If you haven't boarded Jesus, now's your time. I can talk to you about parenting all day long, genealogy all day long, Bible history all day long. But if you personally haven't boarded Jesus and got him on board in your life, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. So, this is your time. This is your moment. It's really simple. A lot of times I'll pray a Jesus prayer, and it goes like this: Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. For some reason, I like to pray that on a long run day. I just do. It just feels better. I'm trying to live repentant as I get older. I see so much that shouldn't be in my life, and it's there. It's not complicated, though. The Jesus prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I come. Here I am. I need you. If that's where you're at today, pray, just talk to him. Lord, this is who I am. It's what I'm not. And I want to orient my life in the right direction. Because I'm going to say goodbye someday. If not to a son, if not to a daughter, if not to a parent, if not to a sibling, if not to a coach, if not to a teacher, if not to a friend, I'm going to be saying goodbye myself. And the game is going to be over. And the time is going to be up, and the great curtain is going to fall on my life. Done. The end. And in that moment, what's going to matter? What's going to matter is everything I talked to you about this morning. That's what's going to matter. I still see him, and I'll keep this with me. I'm running down Sparta Lake Road, early morning, the sun's coming up, the corn's tall, the sky is blue, a little Camry that's gray and four-door in 2002 with 200,000 plus miles comes down the road, and out pops his head, and he gives me one of these, and he says, "Finish strong, Dad, finish strong." Keeps on going. And I guarantee you, every time I run that run on that road, I'm going to go, my mind's going to go right there. When Levi, my youngest, days before he left, put his hand out like this and said, "Finish strong. You can do it." Okay? I want you to see that today. That's me. Got my head out the Camry window. I got my hand out like this, and I'm saying to everybody here, finish strong. It's worth it. Sons and daughters, father of. There's no greater legacy. Stand with me, would you? Love and appreciate each one of you. We have a lot of people to pray for, a lot of love to give. Let it flow freely through this community, through this church. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. You're dismissed.